Okay, let's get started. Okay, so the question was blank is the study of evolution of cognition and behavior using principles of natural selection. That is evolutionary psychology. I would honestly be a bit concerned if you got that question wrong. So let's move on to the next question. Okay, so the question is evolutionary psychology has been criticized for hindsight bias, functional fixedness, the unethical treatment of human participants, or the use of unrepresentative samples. And evolutionary psychology has actually been criticized for hindsight bias because what we're doing is we're saying, well, like a million years ago, men were so interested in women specifically to share their genes. That's probably true, but we're making assumptions from hindsight bias. Not necessarily the super best example. You could think of anything that people are like, well, that was due to evolution. It's all just based on what we think now. I've heard people give like academic talks about this, and you're just kind of thinking like, I mean, it makes sense, but you're just guessing there's no experiment because that was like the evolutionary past. So it's not functional fixedness. We haven't even learned about that yet. And it's not the unethical treatment of human participants because there's no experiments on it because it's just based on what we think happened in the past. So it's not unrepresentative samples either. I can see where that could come from. Like, do these people represent us now? But a sample is a group of participants in an actual experiment, and there are no experiments. Mm, that's kind of a difficult one. There can be evolutionary psychologists can do experiments now, I guess. That is like, well, I guess this in evolution, so is it tr still true now? I guess you can do that. But the main thing is the hindsight bias. We're just looking in the past and making our best guess. So let's do the next question. Okay, so everybody got this answer right. That's good. The question is the Ashline experiment shows, and the answer is people will often conform if everybody in the group makes the same decision. Um, Not that people are reluctant to conform, not that however many people resist, others will re conform because that doesn't really make sense because if people are resisting, then that's not like conforming. There's not even something really to conform to. And compliance tactics are stronger determinants of behavior than authority commands. That's not really true. What is true is that people are likely to conform if everybody conforms, because in the Ashline experiment, there's like a projector or maybe cards where they showed you two lines or they showed you like three lines and they're like, which one is the same? So they're showing you like which line matches these lines. I don't think I'm explaining this that well, but basically, you're supposed to say which line matches. And so there's seven Confederates or actors, and they all give the wrong answer of like the length of this line. And the answer is extremely obvious. And you're like the seventh person guessing, and it's like a very weird situation because every single person gave the wrong answer. You're like, am I crazy? Like, what? You're like, what is going on? But you're a lot more likely to conform if everybody did it. Like, it's very weird that you would just go along. You have a really good chance of going along with the wrong answer. So I think it's very interesting, and there's lots of similar studies. You have Sharif and the autokinetic light study. Make sure you know that one for the test. Plenty of conformity studies, but yes, you guys all got that right. So nicely done. Okay. So this question is Mrs. Axel needs somebody to work the late shift on Friday night. If she uses door in the face, she will ask somebody to cover an hour on Friday and then ask them to work the whole shift. That's not correct. That's foot in the door, where you ask for something small and then you ask for more. Door in the face is you ask somebody to work the late shift on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. And then if they say no, you're like, okay, well, you just work the Friday shift, but you only wanted the Friday shift. Um, so this could be anything where you ask for a lot more than what you want to, and then like back it down to what you want. Or like a car salesperson, like trying to sell a car for super expensive and being like, will you pay like $40,000 for this car? And then you back it down to like, oh, will you pay 25,000? It could be anything where you ask for more. Like our very classic is you ask somebody for $100 when you just want $10, and then you're like, well, can I at least have $10? Foot in the door would be you ask for like $1 and they say okay, and then you're like, can I actually have $10? So most of you got this right. That's great. It's not reminding somebody that you gave them time off the last time they asked for it, or providing them with a list of people who also did the late shift on Friday. Um, Sometimes people get confused about this, but y'all mostly got it, so that's good. Okay. So the question is, research on possible hormonal influences on aggression has indicated that the gender difference in aggression appears early in life and wanes as testosterone levels decline. That's correct. So let me talk about the wrong answer and then I'll talk about the right answer. So it's not true that gender differences in aggression are clearly unrelated to hormonal differences. Testosterone is linked to aggression. It doesn't cause aggressive behavior, but it can contribute. Um, Administering testosterone reduces aggression. That's not true. That's the opposite. And then testosterone levels influence animal aggression, but not human aggression. No, they influence human and non-human animal aggression. The gender difference in aggression appears earlier and declines later in life because testosterone levels in men decline later in life. So like if you're like a 20-year-old man or a 30-year-old man or a male teenager, you have more testosterone, and when you get older, it decreases. And then we also see a decrease in levels of aggressive behavior. Like you don't really see like a 60-year-old murderer or in a blind rage that much. So that's the correct answer on that. Okay, so the question is the blank route to persuasion is most likely to create long-lasting attitude and behavioral changes. So there's a model of persuasion that has the central route and the peripheral route. And the central route is like you're being persuaded because you're paying attention. Maybe there's a speaker that's like giving the facts, you're looking at the pros and cons, you're hearing like a lot of objective information. The peripheral route is you're being persuaded by factors that aren't really like what should necessarily persuade you, like uh the speaker is attractive, or you just keep like hearing an ad on a podcast or something, or you're just like hearing the message a lot, or like the package looks attractive, that kind of stuff. Like one time I feel that I bought some vitamins because the package looked really attractive, and this that was years ago. And this weekend I was thinking about buying them again. And like the package looks, I don't know, it made me feel like these pills look really healthy as ritual vitamins. And so then I started Googling like, will vitamins really improve my health? And it was like mixed. I got the idea maybe vitamins wouldn't improve. I was just like, I don't even know if this is worth it. And these vitamins are so expensive. But I felt like maybe I was persuaded by the packaging. Like that's more the peripheral route to persuasion. That kind of stuff. So the central route is like you're really paying attention and getting the facts, and the peripheral is you're being persuaded for like superficial reasons or you're not really thinking about it. It's not a heuristic. I can see the point of why that could seem like the answer, but it's not really a mental shortcut, especially because this question is asking about which one is more likely to make a long-term change, and that would be the central route. Primacy based, that was more just like a filler answer. Okay, so the major variable that affected the outcome of the Milgram experiment, you will definitely need to know the Milgram experiment for the test, and it's an option to use on the paper. But the major variable that affected it was the legitimacy of the authority figure. So in the Milgram experiment, we have this shock machine. And there's the teacher and the learner, but really all the participants are actually the teacher. And you have this shock machine, and there's a vocabulary thing, and you're supposed to give a shock to the learner every time they get the answer wrong. But like the shocks are getting like very extreme, and you don't want to do it anymore, and they're like eventually like screaming or whatever. It is fake. But and then like a certain amount go all the way where it looks like maybe lethal. I don't know. So basically they're like the professor or whatever, whoever's in charge is like telling them like four phrases like you must continue, you have to keep going or whatever, and trying to make the participant like keep doing the shock machine. So the main thing that influenced it was the legitimacy of the authority figure. It's not how much they were paid. They were probably paid like $3. Not the location, not witnessing defiance, because you weren't actually witnessing defiance. Maybe you would defy it, but you're not really witnessing anything. You're just like in the experiment. And then I think I told y'all that when I went in the super deep dive on the Stanford Prison experiment, I started to go into a mini deep dive on the Milgram experiment, and there is some criticism of it. Like maybe people thought the machine was fake and like various things. It was not as bad as the Stanford Prison experiment criticism at all, but it was very interesting. So if you're interested in compliance and obedience, you can just Google like criticism of the Milgram experiment and see your thoughts. There are lots of Milgram experiments, but we kind of talk in class about one of the most famous ones. It's good to do a lot of similar experiments to see if you're getting replication. In social psychology, we talk about testing the bounds of an effect, like how far will it go? Um, but yeah, basically it was all about the legitimacy of the authority figure. Okay. So I can't believe y'all all got this mostly right except for one person, because I actually think this is a really hard question. The question is, when men and women want empathy and understanding, are they most likely to turn to a coworker? It's obviously not true. A man, a spouse, or a woman. So a lot of people say spouse, but like a man, woman, whatever, you're most likely to turn to a woman no matter what. Women are perceived to be more empathetic and understanding on average, so people will turn to a woman on average. I was just thinking about this yesterday. I was listening to like a romantic advice podcast because I really enjoy that. Uh, and this guy was talking about like I went through when my engagement broke off, just like my female friends, I was just venting to them constantly, like not my guy friends. And so anyways, you're most likely on average to turn to a woman, even if you're married. Like that's crazy. Um, but anyways, I think that that's very interesting. Okay. So, the question is, what is it called? Like, what's the theory called that proposes the central route and the peripheral route to persuasion? Or the question just says, like, the routes. It's not terror management theory, that's unrelated. It's not regulatory focus theory, and it's not the prototype willingness model of health behavior. It is the elaboration likelihood model. So the elaboration likelihood model is what the central route and the peripheral route thing is called. So that's just like a memorization question. Okay, last question coming up. All right. So the question is not a certain new song on the radio over and over and over again. Now she loves it. This is the mere exposure effect. Not the sleeper effect. That's more like a message becoming more potent over time. Like you heard it a while ago, but now it's becoming more potent over time. It's not the recency effect. That's a good guess. And it's not the primacy, is this isn't primacy or recency. This is mere exposure. So the more you hear it, the more you're exposed to it, the more you like it. Or sometimes the more you see a person, the more you like them. Um, Maybe the more times I see that vitamin ad, the more I want to buy it. That's the mere exposure effect. Music is the most classic example, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. So it can apply to a person, it can apply to all kinds of things. But if it's something like you see it more, you hear it more, you like it more, that's mere exposure. So I think it will now do the mini award ceremony. You guys did very well. So I'm pleased to see that. So the overall leader is Daisy, however, Tilly Trinket like neck and neck. So I think you're both winners in my book. So I will go ahead and stop this recording and then we can do any further questions.